Adam was not pure when created is to charge God with creating sin. If he made a being with sin in him, he made the sin possessed by that being. This charge is unscriptural and unreasonable. Therefore, the first temptation, from which came the first tragedy of the race, was directed against a being innocent and pure, a being with a right and normal nature. There is no argument at this point with the second case. No one with reason or common intelligence will assert that Jesus was sinful. He was tempted, but without sin. He was without sin. There was no sin either in his nature or his acts. Satan, in approaching Eve, appealed to two desires, namely a physical desire and a mental desire, both of which were constitutional. There was within her an appetite for a good, red, ripe, juicy, delicious apple, and a hunger for knowledge. The approach to her was through the avenue of normal, natural desire. The second case is Jesus in the wilderness after 40 days of fasting and prayer. Satan approaches Jesus through the avenue of desire as he had approached Eve in the garden. First, he reminds Jesus that he is hungry. Jesus is asked to turn the stones before him into bread. The appeal is to a physical appetite which at this particular time must necessarily have been very strong. Jesus had been without food for 40 days. In addition to this fact, it can be truly supposed that his appetites might have been very strong, as he was without disease, a perfectly normal human being, or normal being. Any appetite or feeling natural and normal to men in general must have been fully as strong or stronger in Jesus, who was a perfect manhood, without weakness or abnormality. He was as hungered, and in this state Satan makes his attack upon him. Second, Satan asked Jesus to cast himself down from the pinnacle of the temple. This would convince the multitudes of his deity. Here is an appeal to another desire, namely a desire in the heart of Jesus to establish his deity. Did he not have this desire? Indeed he did. The reader will recall the fact that he never failed to answer a question or an attack that had a bearing upon his deity or divinity. As to other accusations and questions, he was often silent and opened not his mouth. Third, Satan asked Jesus to worship him and receive the kingdoms of the world as a reward. This is another appeal to a sacred desire. Jesus had come to establish his kingdom in the world. He longed for rule over the hearts of men, to have their obedience, love and adoration. In each case he says no to the tempter. He refuses to satisfy the desires to which Satan appeals. This leads up to where we can now examine the text in James, the 14th chapter, 14 and 15 verses of the first chapter. Every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust or desire and enticed. Then when lust, desire have conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. The text makes clear the following facts, to which we wish, the authors wish, especially to call the attention of the reader. 1. All temptation has within it the element of desire. James says a man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust. The word lust in this translation does not reveal the meaning of this text, as the word lust is now understood to refer usually to base sexual sin. So look at that verse, it's in James, are we? We also believe in the book of James, it says, if you are the children of God and you have the seed of God within you, i.e. knowledge of the scriptures, it's in your subconscious, it's in your mind, it's on your subconscious, or your conscience, it's on your heart, etc., then you do not sin. You cannot sin. You will refuse to sin. You would abhor sin. It's a command. You don't really have an excuse. Okay, you might sin, you might fall, etc., because that's how we are. We have that in us. We are tempted, prompted by our lust, tested by our lust, etc., etc. So if you are claiming to be born from above, a child of God, a believer in God, Jesus the Christ, etc., then you should be striving to no longer sin. We're not saying that you'll be completely free, as many people try to say that we're saying. You'll be prone to it, but you have that moment when you're tempted, when you're prompted to sin, which is the devil or the demon trying to separate you from God, okay? Trying to tear you away from God. You have to stand up and say no. Learn to say no. You have that moment, those seconds, those minutes to decide, to choose, and to say no. So you must become disciplined. Again, put on the full armour of God and learn to say no. If you have habits, they become habitual, right? You do it over and over and over again, and it soon becomes your addiction. So you have to find ways to stop that. Okay, there are some good Christian books out there, and sedentary, that can help you. Og Mandino's Greatest Secret in the World, the first of the 10 to 12 scrolls, where it tells you about bad habits, and you read it 3 times a day, and it unconsciously helps you to create new habits, better habits, and so forth. Put up blockers if you have habits, bad habit of looking at or going to porn sites. Put up ad blocker. Put up other add-ons that block. But sometimes these can also block decent sites like YouTube, etc. Right? So you just have to test them. We can list them at the bottom of this video. We are here to help you. We're not here to baffle you or try to baffle you with brilliance or pull the wool over your eyes. We are generally trying to help you. We are doing this through our own personal experience, through prayer, through fasting, and so forth. Again, 1, all temptation has within it the element of desire. James says a man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust. The word lust in this translation does not reveal the real meaning of this text, as the word lust is now understood to refer usually to base, sensual, social sin. We're going to have a look at James again, see what we can find there. We believe it might be James 1:4-7. Let's have a quick look here. Let's look at James. Okay, we will keep looking here for a second. James 1:13. Let no human being who is tested say that I am being tested by Allah or God, for Allah or God does not test human beings, and he never tested any human being. 14. Except each human being is tested through their desires, they are tempted and tormented by their own desire, and this desire becomes pregnant and gives birth to sin. When sin matures, it gives birth to death. Do not lose yourselves, dear brethren. Every blessed and wholesome gift comes from above, from the Father of the enlightened, and so forth. And there's many other verses like that. We're just checking out more of the book of James while we're here. see if there's anything else within the book of James that can help you. James 4:1. What causes fights and arguments among you? Are they not because of the lust of your members? Footnote indicated there. And footnotes. 4:2. Literal Aramaic idiom or expression. Okay. 4:1. Literal Aramaic idiomatic construction. Was it not from the desires that war in your members? You pine and lust but get nothing. You kill and plunder but you remain empty-handed. You bite and claw. The footnotes. 4:2. Literal Aramaic idiom. Bite poisonously. Your way in a fight but end it with nothing. All because you did not ask. Maybe you asked but you did not receive because you asked with evil intentions, just to satisfy your own desires. Do you not know that adulterers whose compassion is only for this world represent enmity or hatred towards Allah or God? If thus some people wish to be compassionate towards this world, then they are the enemy of Allah or God. James 4:7. Worship thus Allah or God and stand up against Satan, and he will run away from you. And commune with Allah or God, and he will commune with you. Wipe off your hands of sin. Sanctify your hearts from ambivalent thoughts. Footnote indicated there. Okay. 4:8. Literal Aramaic idiomatic expression. Ambivalent souls. Be gentle and lament, and your laughter will turn to tears, and your happiness to consternation. Be gentle before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Do not speak against each other, brethren or brothers, for those who speak against their brother or judge their brother, they speak against the law and condemn the law. And if they condemn the law, they are not the law's functionaries, except its judges. Whoever knows what a blessing is and does not do it, they are with sin. This is James 4:20. James 5:20. The person who brings back the sinner from the road that leads to oblivion or perishing brings back oneself from death and atones for a myriad of his or her own sins in the process. So that's some scripture there. So all temptation has within it the element of desire, and authors repeat the statement that there is in all temptation the element of desire. Without desire there can be no temptation. Do not be afraid to admit this fact. It will not lead you astray. It is the only way to get at the true nature of temptation. One could not be tempted to eat a food that does not exist, one of which he had never heard. You cannot be tempted to take that for which there is absolutely no desire within you. You could not be tempted to eat sawdust, as ye have no desire for it. A man who never used tobacco, and who has not inherited an appetite for it, or a habit for it, cannot be tempted from the sense of an appetite for tobacco. He has no appetite for it. If he uses it, there must be some other desire to influence him till he will have developed a direct desire for tobacco. So it would become regular use of it, and it becomes a habit. You do it over and over and over again, then it becomes your addiction. Eve was tempted to take the forbidden fruit, for she had eaten fruit before and had a distinct appetite for it, an appetite that was constitutional and normal, an appetite for food, which is necessary for the preservation of the race. Again, she was tempted to eat, for she was told that the eating of the fruit would bring knowledge. She had within her a desire, a strong desire to know, a desire for knowledge. This gave strength to the temptation, which was twofold, namely an appeal to physical appetite, which is constitutional, and also an appeal to the desire for knowledge, which too is constitutional. Both desires were a very part of her nature. The temptation of Jesus was made possible because he had a desire for food. He was human with a normal physical body that needed food, that hungered for food, that lived upon food. If we forget the humanity of Jesus, we lose the value of this great fight in our interpretation of his temptation. Second, the temptation was made possible because he desired to establish his deity. He was the Son of God and knew he could get a following only by convincing men of this fact. His interest in this matter is manifested in the question he once asked his disciples, "Whom say ye that I am?" or "Who do you say that I am?" The third phase of his temptation was possible because Jesus desired to establish his kingdom among men. Satan offered him the kingdoms of the world if he would fall down and worship him. Again, Jesus refused to satisfy a desire. Satan had exhausted his resources and withdrew for a season. 2. Desire is not necessarily sinful within itself. It was not wrong for Eve to desire delicious fruit to satisfy a normal hunger for food, nor was it a sin for her to desire to be wise, to have knowledge. It was evidently not wrong for Jesus to desire food when he was hungry, nor wrong for him to want to convince men of his deity, nor a sin for him to strongly desire to establish his kingdom among men over their hearts and lives. It is not a sin for a healthy, robust, rosy-cheeked boy whose very being tingles with life to desire a red, juicy and delicious apple or a piece of well-cooked beefsteak. It is not a sin for a healthy man full of life and vigour to feel the waves of passion within his body, but it is a sin to break over lawful bounds within or without. 3. Sin enters with a decision to satisfy desire by unlawful means or illegitimate methods. Desire is God-implanted, constitutional, natural and useful. Desires are often abnormal, having been warped and distorted by sin inherited or committed, but constitutional desire is not to be looked upon as sinful within itself. Here is where lust or desire conceives. The harm is not in the desire for fruit, but in the consent to satisfy that desire unlawfully. Desire for money to feed yourself and family is not a sin, but it is a sin to consent to satisfy that desire for money by taking an unlawful method for doing it, i.e. something illegal, or getting it illegally, obtaining it illegally, or using it illegally. It is not a sin to feel the flash of passion, but when one looketh upon a woman to lust or desire after her, to consent to satisfy his desire, if he had the opportunity, he hath already committed adultery in his heart with her. Yeah, so you're looking at her, she's pretty, she's buxom, etc., etc., and in your mind you're imagining, oh, if I could possess her, if I could have her, I could do this, I could do that. Okay, so that's where you're committing adultery with her. Okay, in your mind. You're not doing it physically, but you're doing it in your mind. Okay. No act can have a moral quality till the will has entered into the act. There is no virtue till the will has decided upon benevolent attitudes and conduct. Well, we would rather say that choice, that decision. Neither is there, or your entire being, right? Guilt in the truest sense of the word till the will has made a choice of wrong, with right and wrong both before it. There is, of course, taught in the Bible a sin of ignorance, which is covered by the atonement. It is sometimes said that a person has conflicting motives. This is not possible. There may be two desires in the mind, contending each against the other for mastery, for expression, and for extension into conduct. In this case, it is evident that the will must finally decide the matter. and settle the dispute between these desires. When the will does act, it must desire in favour of one of these contending desires and against the other one. When this is done, the will clearly unites with one of the desires. It cannot unite with both of them. The union of the will with a desire constitutes a motive. As the will cannot unite with two opposing desires, but can unite with only one of them, it becomes clear that there can be but one motive resulting. Therefore, one cannot have two conflicting motives in the mind at the same time. The will cannot and does not take sides against itself. This would be suicidal. In the formation of a motive, that is by having the will to take sides with some desire, if that motive is now to satisfy the desire with means forbidden, such as consent to satisfy hunger by stealing, or to satisfy passion by committing fornication or adultery, to get knowledge by unlawful means, the soul comes under condemnation. Desire have conceived, the agent is guilty in the sight of God, whether he ever executes the deed to which the motives point or not. He has consented, his will has acted. The motive has a moral quality, and surely the deed will have, if ever executed. Remember that you retain your integrity so long as you say no to a desire that cannot be satisfied by lawful means, and yes to desire that is directing you toward legal and upright conduct. Someone may ask what we will do with a case when a person actually desires to do evil. To this we will reply that a person in this condition has already given himself over to sin and the devil, and makes a case entirely outside of this discussion. Let us notice a simple example of temptation. A boy stands before a fruit stand hungry. His appetite, which within itself is good and holy, says, "Apple, apple, I want an apple." But honestly, a desire to do right says, go hungry, be a gentleman." What happens? The will acts finally. It says, "No appetite. If I had a dime, I would buy you satisfaction, but you must not and shall not be satisfied wrongly. You would be better to be hungry forever and be right." Did Christ not say, when they're picking the heads of grain in the field, and the Pharisee says, "Hey, you're picking on the Sabbath"? So didn't David take from the offering, the bread offering, with bread from the altar because he was hungry? So in some cases he was hungry, right? So he wasn't stealing. The boy remains honest. He is one. He has the approval of God and his own conscience. If he should consent to satisfy that hunger for an apple by taking one and not paying for it, in this case desire conceives, a wrong motive is formed, and the boy in his moral nature and in the sight of God falls, and is guilty before the bar of his own conscience. Let us sum up the truths we have considered. All temptation has within it the element of desire. Desire within itself may be wholly and perfectly legitimate. Sin enters when the will consents to satisfy a desire by an unlawful or wrong method or means. The female desire and the male will unite, conceiving. Desire cannot conceive until she unites with the male will. When lust or desire have conceived, hath united with the will, she or it bringeth forth sin. This figure may be faulty and may be criticized, but it carries the main idea and makes truth clearer, which will, we trust, create a willingness to forgive the faults of the figure. Let us now follow the text a little further, making a few more observations. When the will and desire have united, consenting to a wrongful method of satisfaction, desire have conceived and bringeth forth sin. The person is now under condemnation. He has sinned in his heart and lost the smiles of God. He's been separated from God, right? Because of it. It's because sin can't dwell in the presence of God, remain in the presence of God. Sin has been brought forth, and when it is finished, it results in death. Is it as bad to consent to sin as it is to put the motive into execution and do the act, whatever it might be? By no means. If you sin in your heart, which actually means your mind, because your heart is just strongest muscle of the body that pumps oxygen and blood around the body, right? It doesn't have a mind or a brain. It can't think. It's not intelligent. Okay, so in the Hebrew, etc., it's referring to the mind. So if you sin within your mind, no one is directly wronged except yourself. If you do an act of sin, in most cases at least, others are involved, or at least the cause is openly injured together. with one's own self. If the sin is only in the mind or the heart, you can get right, having no one to deal with except a kind God. But if you go into the open and outbroken sin, usually other persons must be dealt with in the matter, at least if they are sinned against. A sin of the mind or heart is bad enough. It brings the curse of God, it costs the approbation of your own soul, it weakens the manhood, undermines the strength of the will, and may lead to hell or oblivion. Eternal perishing, right? Non-existence. It depends on which Bible version you read, translation or transliteration. Be right inside and you will likely always be right outside. Be true to yourself and you will be true to others. Conform the heart or mind to the will of God. Submit yourself to God, surrender to God, right? And the life will be adjusted naturally. Oh, for wills that are set to do the bidding of God, for hearts that are fixed, for souls or minds that are fixed, for souls that are so pure within that no sin or stain can be found within. The blood of Jesus can make it so, and will for him who says yes to God. So there you go. It is possible. You must strive not to sin, to not sin. You must refuse it, refute it, abhor it, say no. Learn to say no. You can do it. It says it right there. So stop making excuses to justify your sinning. Process in temptation. Process in temptation. Man's whole being is supposed to be governed by certain laws which, if obeyed, will promote his best interests. There are laws of hygiene for the body, laws of mind for the intellect, and spiritual laws for the soul. There is a definite process in the work of temptation. There may be many kinds of temptation, and there are. Satan may try us on scores of different lines and employ many agencies, but with the variety of kinds of temptation and degrees of temptation, there is a sameness in the general process of approach and method of attack. First, let us notice that the attention. One psychologist defines attention as the focusing of consciousness. Satan got the attention of Eve. He got her to look at the forbidden fruit and then to meditate and reason concerning the results from the eating of it. That is, the false conclusions concerning the results.